Hey guys, today I'm going to go through a hip opening sequence as well as opening up the front of the body and the shoulders a little bit. This is going to be more specifically for athletes and then also for people who sit at their desk all day and they get really tight in their hips. So this is going to be really great for really stretching out that whole area, like your glutes, your psoas, and all of your adductors and your abductors. And we're just going to be kind of working them out a little bit and then stretching them. So to get started, we'll just sit back and cross your legs or just kind of sit and get comfortable. Put your hands on your knees and close your eyes. And just start to focus on your breath. We're just going to do a couple rounds of just breathing right now to kind of get us focused. Probably running around all day, just really busy. So just take this time right now to really get focused. So inhaling in through your nose and exhaling out through your mouth. And just do a couple of rounds of this at your own pace. And just get in tune with your body and become aware of how you're feeling today. Where you're feeling a little tight, or things might feel a little bit sore in certain areas, and just take note of that. So during your practice today, you might want to stretch and do things a little bit differently than what I tell you to do, and that's totally fine. Just really tap into how you're feeling. We're going to do a little bit of a side stretch. So bring your left leg straight out in front of you and take your right foot to cross over your left leg and lift your body all the way up really straight as you can, and lift your left arm up to the sky and take your left tricep to the outside of your right knee and just twist open. And this is just stretching the spine. And also maybe stretching in your hips and your glutes a little bit if you're using your arm to push your knee over to the side. And then let's go to the other side. So straighten your right leg and cross your left leg over your right and lift your right arm up to the sky. And take the right tricep to the outside of your left knee and open up to the left. And then coming back to center, we'll just roll over onto the hands and knees into tabletop. And we'll just roll around in circles. We'll go counterclockwise just to warm the wrists up a little bit. And then going clockwise and turning the other way. Just moving your hips around. And getting that stretch in your wrists. And then maybe moving your wrists around. So moving them in the opposite direction and just leaning back. And feeling that stretch. So just move your hands around until you feel like you've gotten a really good stretch in your wrists. And then take your knees back a little bit farther from your hands and inch your hands forward a little bit. And then push your hips and your butt up into the air and drop your head in between your arms. And this is puppy pose. We're just stretching our shoulders a bit, getting them warmed up. And look up and come back to tabletop. And tuck your toes under and push your hips up and back. And just begin to walk your feet and stretch the backs of your calves and your hamstrings. Release any tension. And one thing you want to remember while in down dog is just keep your belly button really, really close into the back of your spine. So you're really pulling your stomach in and you're pushing out through your shoulders. Not so much that you're hyperextending. You want to be pretty neutral in your entire spine. And just begin to walk your feet out and push your hips out to the side. And just maybe move your body in a way that feels good to you. So coming to your tippy toes, stretching your toes a little bit and rolling them. And then look to your hands and bring them halfway up the mat. And then bring your feet to meet your hands and fold forward. And here you can just let your arms dangle. Or you can grab your elbows and take a little bend in your knees. Just continuing to stretch out the backs of our legs. So just take this time to feel the tightness and warm them up right now. And then walk your hands out to the left and bend your left knee and push your right hip out. And you'll feel the stretch in your right IT band. And then come back to center and move your hands over to the right. And this time, bend your right leg and keep your left leg straight and push your left hip out to the side. And remember to keep your head dangling. So relax the muscles in the back of your neck. And feel the stretch all the way down the left side of your leg. And bring your hands back to center. And slowly roll up to standing. And inhale your arms all the way up to the sky. And exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms all the way up to the sky. And exhale, forward fold. Walk your hands to the top of the mat. Step your feet back into plank. As a modification, you can always come down to your knees. Or you can come into a normal plank. So fingers spread really wide apart. Shoulders completely over your wrists in one straight line. Your neck should be neutral, so your gaze is a little bit in front of your fingertips. And really pulling in through your belly. So you don't want your ribs to stick out and your butt to stick up. You want to think about sucking the lower belly and the ribs in. So you're almost hollowing out a little bit through the shoulders and your middle body. And shift your shoulders over your wrists. And slowly begin to lower down halfway. And then push back up to plank. And then slowly begin to lower down halfway. And then back up to plank. One more time, lower down halfway. Holding it here. And then exhale all the way down to your mat. And inhale, upward cobra. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward cobra. And exhale down to your mat. And one thing you want to remember here is you want to keep your elbows in close to the side of your body. And also when you bring your body up, you don't want to have this great big arch in your back. You want to think about pulling your core in like you're still in a plank. So your belly shouldn't actually be touching the mat. So inhaling up, and you can see my belly is still pretty far from the mat. So inhaling up, squeezing your core, and exhaling lower down. So this is one modification. Instead of doing upward facing dog, you can always come down into low cobra. And then inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. And just take a couple of deep breaths here. And look to your hands and take a couple hops up to the top of your mat. And then exhale, forward fold. Inhale, up, flat back. And exhale, forward fold. And inhale, all the way up into chair pose. Keeping your knees together, pulling your shins back. And tucking your tailbone slightly under and lifting your chest up. So you don't want to be leaning forward like this, trying to sit deep into your pose. I'd rather you sit up higher in your chair. And you want to think about expanding through the chest. So it's almost as if there's a wall behind you. And you're sitting back. And your back is still completely straight against the wall. And continuing to breathe. Let's sit a little bit deeper, a little bit lower. Keeping your form, shifting the weight into your heels. And sit a little bit lower. And a little bit lower. And down just a little bit lower. Still trying to keep that chest up. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, up, flat back. Exhale, plant your hands down onto the ground and step back into plank. Shift your shoulders over your wrists and flow through to your downward facing dog. So you can go through to your chaturanga, to upward facing dog, or you can lower all the way down into low cobra. So to lower down halfway into chaturanga, inhale, upward facing dog, exhale, downward facing dog. Kick your right leg up to the sky, and open up your hip, taking your right heel to your right butt. And just moving your hip around, and your ankle around. And square your hips back. And exhale your right knee to your right elbow. Holding it here. And inhale your leg back to the sky. And exhale your right knee to your left elbow. And inhale back up to the sky. And exhale your right knee to your nose. And exhale, plant your foot out onto the ground. And lower your back knee to the ground. And uncurl your toes. Inhale your arms up to the sky. And sit a little bit deeper into your lunge. And take your hands and kind of take yourself into a little bit of a back bend. Really stretching out the front of your muscles. So your abdominal muscles and your psoas and your hip flexors on the left side. And exhale, push your hips back, keeping them square. And then fold forward over your front leg. And if you need to bend your knee a little bit, you can go ahead and do that too. Just try to make sure that your stomach is meeting the top of your thigh. And slowly bend your right knee. And take your right foot out to the side of your mat. And your right hand to the inside of your right foot. And then slowly begin to roll onto the outside of your right foot to open up your hip. And you have an option of staying here, Or you can come down onto your elbows, maybe using your hand to push your hip out a little bit more for more of a stretch. If you're on your forearms, come back up to your hands and take your right knee to your right wrist, coming into half pigeon. It's a little bit early in the practice to be going into this, so just be gentle with yourself. So make sure your right knee is close to the outside of your mat. And squaring your hips, making sure that your back leg is in one straight line. So your foot, your toes, and your ankle all in one straight line. And take a little back bend. And then fold forward over your leg. And this shouldn't be a super easy stretch, so if you're not feeling a stretch with this, just adjust your knee. Take it a little bit closer to the outside of the mat. Maybe pull your shin a little bit more parallel to the front. Maybe square your hips. So just adjust with your body until you feel that stretch in your glutes. And then come back up and bring your right foot back into a lunge. And we're going to do a little bit of a quad stretch. So if you need to roll up the back of your mat for a little bit more cushion for your knee, you can do that. So coming into a lunge, and then pick your back foot up off the ground and pull your heel close to your butt. And this is stretching out your quad, more specifically your rectus femoris. And it's the muscle, one of the quad muscles, actually hip flexor too, that attaches to your kneecap all the way up, and it connects to your hip. So it's crossing a bunch of different joints, and this is one of the muscles that causes runner's knee or your kneecap to trap, just because it gets really tight and we don't stretch it that often. So this is one of those stretches you should be doing pretty much every single day, especially if you're a runner. And release the back leg, roll your mat back out, and frame your right foot with both of your hands. Take your right leg up to the sky and open up the hip one last time. Maybe opening up to wild thing. And come back to three-legged dog. Drop your right leg down to the mat. And kick your left leg up to the sky. Opening up the hip, bending the knee. Moving the hip around, the ankle around. And squaring your hips back. And exhale your left knee to your left elbow. And inhale your leg back up. And exhale your left knee to your right elbow. And inhale back up. And last time, knee to your nose. And plant your left foot to the ground. And drop your right knee to the ground. And inhale your arms up. And sit a little bit deeper into your lunge. And take a little bit of a back bend. And then shift your hips back. Coming into runner stretch, keeping your hips square. And fold forward. Keeping your stomach so that it's close and touching the top of your left thigh. And slowly start to shift forward. And take your left foot to the outside of your mat, your hands on the inside of your foot, and start to roll onto the outside of your left foot. Really opening up the hip here. Relax the muscles surrounding the joint. And you can stay here, or you can come down to your forearms. Maybe using your arm to get a little bit more of a stretch and push your leg out to the side. And come back up to your hands. And take your left knee to your left wrist. So close to the outside, the left side of your mat. And come into half pigeon. And come back for a little bit of a stretch. And just make the little adjustments here so you can feel that stretch in your glutes and your hips. And fold forward. And slowly come back up onto your hands. And push your foot back up, coming into a lunge. And you can roll the back of your mat up for more cushion on your knee. And this time, lift your right foot up and come into a quad stretch. We'll hold it a little bit longer since I chatted too much on the other side. Make it even. So it's also something that you can do against the wall, where you put your shin up against the wall and you lean back. And you'll really feel that stretch. Here we're just going to go on the lunge and go pretty deep into the stretch. And release your leg, unfold your mat. Take your hands to frame your left foot, and take your left foot back up to the sky. Open up your hips, and then maybe flip your dog, coming into wild thing. And then flip it back, and come to downward facing dog. And look to your hands and take some hops up to the middle of your mat. And exhale, forward fold. And inhale all the way up to standing. So we're going to do some balancing poses, which is really great for working your hips and your glute muscles. And when we work them out, we're kind of shortening the muscles a little bit, and then we're going to stretch them again right afterwards. So it'll be, your muscles will be super warm, and they'll stretch a little bit more easier. So shift the weight into your right foot, and lift your left foot up. So you're trying to get your back heel to your butt, and reach around to the inside of your foot with your left hand, and keep your knees in close so that they're touching. Bring your arm up, and slowly begin to push your foot into your back hand, kind of like a bow and arrow, and begin to lean forward as if someone were grabbing your arm in front of you. And at the same time, you're still pushing into your back hand. So it's like a bow and arrow. You're balancing yourself by pulling your arm forward and pushing your foot back. And find your drishti, or a focal point, for you to find focus on to help you with your balance. And release your back foot and open up into half moon pose. Oh. So really stack your hips on top of each other and open them up. Back leg is parallel to the mat. Hand is in front of you, left arm up to the sky. And exhale, lower your back foot down to warrior two. And exhale to reverse warrior. And then on an inhale, come back up into half moon. Engaging your core to help you with your balance. So you're squeezing your abs like someone's going to punch you in the stomach. And then exhale, lower your foot back to the ground. And reverse your warrior two. One more time. Push back up into half moon. And then square your hips and bring your hand down to the mat. And bring your arms up behind you into airplane or warrior three. Really elongating through your head and your neck. And flexing your toes. Maybe taking a slight bend in that standing knee so you're not hyperextending. And slowly begin to lift your chest up. And take your left foot to the inside of your right thigh. And inhale your arms up to the sky. And exhale to prayer pose for tree pose. In modification, you can bring the sole of your left foot to the inside of your right ankle or your right calf. So just find what works for you. And release your foot from your leg. And take the outside of your left ankle and place on top of your right knee, so just above the kneecap. So you're kind of coming into a figure four. Hands are still in prayer, and slowly sit back, flexing your left toes. And you'll feel the stretch in your hips and your glutes. And release your hands down to the ground. And then release your foot down into the ground and come into a squat. All right, so now we're going to go into side curl. So doing a little bit of arm balancing here. So knees are straight forward. You're twisting your body to the side. Plant your hands down onto the ground. And you want to think about keeping your arms almost like you're in chaturanga the whole time. So when you bend them, your triceps are in close to each other. So you're going to take the outside of your left knee to the outside of your right tricep, and you're going to take the outside of your left hip and place on top of your left tricep. So you're kind of creating a shelf for your legs. And you want to think about keeping your knees in one straight line, so you don't want them to be kind of like going crazy here. And come up onto your tippy toes. And just lean forward, and you can go this far. Maybe lift your feet up, just tilt over a little bit. This is more of a balancing pose than anything. And if you want, you can take your head to the ground. And then maybe lift your head up and just play around with that. And then come back to center. And fold forward. And just hang here for a second. Take a couple breaths before we go and do the same thing on the other side. Just kind of move your arms around. And stretch out your ankles and your legs. And then slowly roll yourself back all the way up to standing. And this time, you should be in the middle of your mat. You're going to shift the weight into your left foot. And you're going to bend your right knee and reach your right hand to the inside of your right foot, making sure your knees are still glued together. Lift your left arm up to the sky and slowly begin to push your right foot back into your right hand. And find a spot to focus on before you begin to move too much. Continuing to push your hand into your foot into your hand. And then begin to bring your chest forward and reach your arm forward as if someone were grabbing your hand and pushing your foot back into your hand. So you're creating kind of a bow and arrow effect. And release your back foot, bring your left hand down to the ground. Stack your hips on top of each other and come into half moon. And slowly bring your right leg back to the ground into warrior two. And reverse your warrior. And then push back into half moon. You can take your gaze down to the mat, or you can look to your hand up at the sky. And release your right foot back into warrior two. Revolve your warrior, reverse your warrior. And then one last time, push up into half moon. And then bring your hand down to the mat, square your hips to the mat. And really bring your arms up to your side, coming into airplane or warrior three. Really stretch forward, your head forward. Your spine should be in one straight line. Your toes pointing to the ground. And slowly lift your chest up, bringing your right foot up and taking the sole of your right foot to the inside of your right calf, or bringing it up to the inside of your right or your left thigh. Inhale your arms up and exhale to prayer pose. And bring the outside of your right ankle to the top part of your left kneecap, so just over top on your thigh. And slowly begin to sit down. And you'll feel the stretch on the outside of your right hip. Stretching out the glutes and the abductors. And release your hands down to the mat and fold forward. And release your right foot down into the ground and come into a squat. We're going to do side crow on the right side this time. So this might be a little bit more difficult or more easier than the other side. So just be patient with yourself. Just try it. So I'll kind of scooch over to show you how this looks from the side. So knees pointing forward, you're up on your tippy toes. Twisting your body over to the right, plant your hands to the side. Your knees should always be in one straight line, so one shouldn't be like down or up or to the side. Always together, so it's like you're gluing your inner thighs together, you're squeezing them together the entire time. So place your hands down on the ground, spread your fingers apart, and begin to create a shelf with your arms, so like you're going into chaturanga. So taking the outside of your left knee to the outside of your left tricep, and then the outside of your right hip to the outside of your right tricep. And coming onto your tippy toes and balancing yourself over, maybe coming to your head and letting your feet lift off. And then maybe seesawing back to the ground. maybe lifting both up off the ground and just finding that balance on your elbows and using your fingertips to help you balance too. And release down to the ground. And then bring your feet so that they're about the width of your mat and fold forward. And take a bend in your knees. And just let your body hang here. And then slowly come down into a squat and take your shins down to the mat and sit back on your heels. We're going to go into camel pose, which is another good pose to really help open up the entire front of the body. Also helps open up your shoulders too, because we're sitting at a desk all day and we're hunched. So it's good for really opening up your entire clavicle. Our pecs, they're really, really tight from being rounded all day. So this is another good exercise to really open up that area of the body. So just sit up on your shins, bring your knees about hip width apart, and the tops of your feet should be on the ground behind you. We're going to take your hands and take the palms of your hands into your lower back. Bring your elbows close together behind you. And inhaling up, tucking your tailbone slightly under, and slowly begin to lean back. So you don't really want to be rounding through your shoulders through this. You want to think about extending up towards the sky and opening back. So rolling your shoulder blades down your back. Tucking your tailbone under still. Pushing your hips forward. And when you've gone back as far as you can release your head. Maybe reaching around to grab your heels. Letting your hips continuing to pull you forward. And opening up through the fronts of your shoulders. And slowly come back up and sit back onto your heels. And bring your knees back, and you can bring your knees together, or you can bring them the width of your mat, and your feet together for child's pose. And walk your hands up, and take a couple of breaths here. Walk your hands back behind you and grab your hands and clasp them together, and then begin to pull them up, and you'll feel this stretch in your shoulders. Release your arms down. We're going to walk ourselves all the way to the front of the mat, back up into plank, and then come down to your forearms and push your hips up into dolphin pose, and slowly begin to walk your feet up as close to your elbows as you can, and then walk them back. And come into forearm plank. And back to dolphin. Walk your feet up. And walk your feet back. Coming into plank. Pulling your belly button into your spine. And back up to dolphin. Walk your feet up. And then all the way back, coming in to forearm plank, and push yourself back up to plank. Shift your shoulders over your wrists, lower down, 5, 4, keep your triceps in close to your side, 3, 2, bring your belly button up, and 1, all the way down to the ground. Bring your left arm out to a T. We're going to stretch out the shoulders now. So pick your right leg up and slowly begin to bring it back behind you and look up to the sky. And you'll feel the stretch in your right and your left shoulder. And roll back up to your stomach. And bring your right arm out to a T. And use your left arm to push you over. And your left foot up. And over the back. You can rest your head down on the ground. Maybe bring your left arm behind you. And you'll feel the stretch in the front part of your shoulder. And just relax. And slowly roll back onto your stomach and push yourself back up. And you're sitting on your heels. And then move your feet to the side and your feet in front of you. And then slowly begin to lower down all the way to the mat. And bring your knees up so that your shins are parallel to the mat. And take your right leg to cross over your left. So your feet are your legs are kind of still parallel to each other. So option 1, you can stay here and try to pull your legs in close. Option 2, for a really intense stretch in your glutes and your hips, you're going to reach your left hand to grab the outside of your right foot, and then take your right hand to reach the outside of your left foot into a reclined cow face pose. And you want your shins to be in one plane, one straight line. And then you can pull your feet closer to you for an even more deeper, intense stretch. And release. This time taking your left foot over the top of your right leg. And you can reach around behind your thighs for this one, or take your right hand to reach and grab the outside of your left foot, and your left hand to reach and grab the outside of your right foot. And then pulling your feet closer to each other, making sure to keep your shins in one straight line. Relax the muscles in your face and in your shoulders. And release your legs. And then just kind of windmill your legs back and forth. And come back to center, and you can reach around to the outsides of your feet, or maybe do the insides for happy baby. And just rock back and forth. And take this one last hip opener before we settle into Savasana. And then release your legs to the ground. We'll take a minute or two and just lay here and relax into the mat. Relaxing the muscles in your face. And if just laying here on your back hurts your lower back, you can actually bend your knees and bring them up and kind of TP your legs together so your knees are touching. And you can lay here like this. Your arms can be down or your hands can be facing up. Just kind of get your last minute jitters and adjustments out and find what feels good for you. And slowly begin to move your fingers and your toes and just make your way up into a seated position. At your own pace, you want to roll over to your right side and just lay there for a second. You can do that. Or you can come immediately up into a seated position. So we did a lot of hip openers today, and I hope you're feeling a little bit more looser. If you're still feeling really tight in your hips and your glutes, or even in like your calves and your thighs and your hamstrings, another good thing that you can do for that is you can actually take a tennis ball, or if you want, you can take a lacrosse ball. It's a little bit harder and it hurts a little bit more, but you can kind of just take the ball and find that spot where your muscle's really tight, and just kind of find that spot where it's really tight and just sit on that. And I take this into work with me, and I like to just kind of sit on this, or sometimes I'll put it on my back and lean against it, and you'll be able to kind of get that trigger point and that really, really tight area to kind of help release the tightness in the muscle. So you can use this. It's really easy to use, and you can basically use it anywhere while you're sitting and watching TV, when you're at work, when you're in your car. So this is a huge asset, and tennis balls are super cheap. So highly recommend this for those really, really tight muscles, even alongside your back too. And you can also take this the front part of your shoulder too. You can kind of lay down on the mat right here, and you can work out the tightness in the front part of your pecs and your shoulders. So when you're sitting at a computer all day and you're rounding your shoulders over, you're tightening and shortening the pec muscles. And this, using a tennis ball or something similar, will help release that tightness if you just kind of lay here. So if you just kind of like lay here and watch TV or something, that's easy to do, and it kind of feels really good. So those are just some ways to help really open up front part of your chest and your hips and your glutes. So I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions, just leave the questions in the comments below. If there's a specific video you'd like me to make, just let me know. Thanks. See you guys.